for chemical and metals. We also have Todd Sullivan joining us from valueplays.com. So we're going to take a look at this stock. And, Andrew, why don't we just get your instant reaction here? A 62-cent loss here. We were expecting a gain, but what do you make of this?
I think we're seeing losses all across the chemical sector, so it's not a surprise that they missed. I think the magnitude of it is pretty high, but I think we have to look at some of the underlying numbers. What I want to see is where the volumes were in the quarter and kind of expectations going forward.
Overall sales volumes, it says Q4 down 17%. Quarterly volume declining 17%, and it was down, according to the company, in all of their operating segments. I'm just reading off the headlines that the newswires are putting out, but that doesn't sound very good, does it, or does it?
No, 17% drop in volumes is probably on the higher end of where I thought they might be. I think last quarter they were down 9%, and the Roman Haas business was down 3% in volumes. And some of that 9% was due to some hurricane-related damage in the third quarter. So 17% drop in volumes is pretty high.
All right, let's bring in Todd now. Todd, I just want to go through a couple more of the headlines. We're seeing Dow Chemicals saying they're planning for a global recession throughout 2009. It says most value chains are running at low inventory, as we were just talking about, but really seeing weakness in the fourth quarter in all segments, all geographic areas. So that's some of the comments from Dow Chemical coming out at this time. Again, a loss of 62 cents. What's your reaction?
Well, I think they're right that the global economy is slowing in dramatically, and it's not going to get better anytime this year. So anybody who makes anything is going to be suffering, and Dow's at the basis of that food chain. They make the things that people use to make items, and I think to expect anything different for this year, it's just not going to happen. But
Todd, you own the stock, correct?
Yes, I do.
Are you thinking about keeping that stock? What's your plan for that? What's your play on that stock?
Yeah, I'm going to continue to hold the stock and own the stock. I mean, a lot of what happens with Dow for the remainder of this year, it depends on the Roman Haas and where that litigation ends up, where they end up with the sales of the commodity businesses. I mean, that's the elephant in the room. Yeah, earnings are going to be bad, and we expect that. But depending what happens in court and depending what happens with the sale of the commodity business, they could come through the end of this year just fine.
Roman Haas. We'll get back to that, Todd. I just want to go around the table real quick and get everybody's view on this Roman Haas deal, because Roman Haas suing Charles to get you involved in this as well. Dow Chemical wants more time, apparently, to come up with the cash to get this deal done. How do you think that plays out in an environment where it's very tough to get deals done?
I would think that they would try to get out of this deal right now. I don't see it with this sort of tight credit environment, with this sort of guidance, how they could even pull it off. Take whatever sort of hit they're going to take and refocus on cleaning up their shop. I mean, this is a disastrous earnings report.
Yeah, it's brutal, right, Andrew? I mean, do you think they can get out of that deal legally, or how's that? Because that's what, as Todd says, that's what's weighing on them, right?
I think the deal right now is pretty airtight. It's tough for them to get out. So I think they're trying to negotiate maybe better terms, but even that, they paid a very high price for it. So I guess the question is, how they're going to finance it and what they're going to do with their dividend, things like that. I think they should probably think about issuing equity. I think we've seen that in a couple of different names in the metal sector, like Rio Tinto is thinking about it. Freeport-McMoRan just did it, and Xstrata as well. So I know commodity companies don't like to issue equity in the trough, but that might force their hand.
And Todd, I want to bring you back in on this, because one of the things we're looking for, and I'm continuing to look through the headlines for this, is anything on the dividend payment. I'm not seeing anything about a cut, but we're keeping to look through it a little bit. Do you think during this time, I mean, should Dow keep that dividend? What's your view on that?
Well, again, it comes down to what they can do with that commodity business. If we know they're talking to several buyers right now for the business that Kuwait backed out on. So if they can line up a buyer for that in a short time frame and complete that deal, then they can complete the Roman Haas deal. A dividend cut really isn't necessary in that case. Now, if they can't line up a buyer, and if the judge decides in the court hearing that specific performance is due, you will complete the merger now, then they have no option but to cut the dividend.
Right.
So, but the judge does have leniency. He did say, while one remedy may be appropriate, the court does have discretion to consider other factors. So he could say, yeah, you got to complete it, but maybe you don't have to complete it till September. He does have a large leeway in what he can rule. And, while he could say to Dow there's penalties involved and you have to complete the transaction, he may say to Roman Haas, it doesn't make sense to do it right now. So you're going to do it later. And in that case, that's good news for Dow, because they can sell those businesses, get that cash, and not worry about the credit rating agencies.
That's a good point, Todd. Right now, Charles, the dividend stands at about 42 cents a quarter, $1.68 a year. So, we talk about dividends, positioning companies in your portfolio that are going to pay you back. I mean, What do you make of the dividend, and what Todd also had to say about the fact that there could be some leniency in this timeline to finish this deal, maybe when economic conditions improve?
Yeah, well, I mean, all those things are true, and obviously they really want to hold on to the dividend. It's just really tough considering the depths of this miss to be off almost $3 billion on the top side, to lose 62 cents when you were expected to make some money, and to say, well, this is the way things are going to be for several quarters. There's nothing they could do about the global recession, and that's the big question mark here. Now, and ultimately, they may have to make some adjustments on that dividend. Every other company in the world right now is sort of hunkering down to survive 2009.
Yeah.
No time to try to be a hero. If you can't afford to pay a dividend, you may have to cut it, even though most companies are loath to do so.
Yeah, it's interesting. All right, I know that Andrew and Todd are both going to be on Money for Breakfast here in the next hour to talk more about Dow Chemical. So, again, a much wider loss than expected. The stock, by the way, the indication, the bid's 1032 on a stock that closed at 1105 yesterday. So it looks like it's going to open somewhere in the mid. Makes sense to you? It would be obviously be down on this news, I would think. Right. All right. We'll see you guys in the next hour to break this down a little bit further. Thanks to both of you. All right. Let's talk about what's happening.